I'd like to call to order the May 18th Goodyear Planning and Zoning Commission. Will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, will the Secretary note the attendance? All Commissioners, sans Commissioner Keith, are present. And I will take a motion for last month's Commission minutes.
I move we approve the minutes from last month.
Second.
All right, for the motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Commissioner, the minutes have been approved. Are there any comments from the public on anything that is not on the agenda that anyone wanted to bring up? Now would be the time to do so. All right, moving on. Disclosure of ex parte communication.
No, thank you.
Okay, I've done either. All right, on to business. First case number 11-280-00001, the amendment of the zoning ordinance update of the design guidelines. I will open the public hearing. Brett, take it away.
Thank you, Commissioner Laux, members of the Commission, members of the public. Happy to be here to get a recommendation on the design guidelines and to continue to move this project forward. We were before you at the April 20th Planning and Zoning Commission, and at that meeting we received some kind of last-minute comments from the Arizona Multi-Housing Association, and we didn't get a chance to sit down and talk to them about some of their concerns. So we asked that you continue this item at the April 20th Planning Commission meeting. Since that time, we have been able to meet with representatives from the Multi-Housing Association, and we believe that we made them happy. They did provide a number of comments, and we worked through a number of issues with them, and I'm sure you could see that in the redlined copy of the design guidelines. There were a number of multifamily design guidelines that were changed. They wanted a number of them changed or deleted, and we were able to work with them to maintain a ground where they were comfortable with. And there are three things that I would like to cover quickly, and then we can open up to any questions that you might have. But there were two items related to the multifamily development that I wanted to walk through with you. And the first one is on page 20 in Chapter 3. I'll give you a minute to turn there. So it's Chapter 3, Multifamily Residential, page 20. And it's under building scale and height, B, it's number 3 is the first one that I wanted to talk to you about. This requirement that the City of Goodyear has kind of been unique to the City of Goodyear. The majority of other cities throughout the state have not had something like this. And the thing that was unique, we had a provision that said that large multifamily projects should be broken up into groups of structures, which is normal, but we did say the maximum number of attached units per building should be 8. And I think we have to keep in mind when these guidelines were formulated, the development practices were quite a bit different. But we've had an opportunity to talk to a few prominent multifamily developers who have helped to educate us on what the standard is, and they've kind of communicated that since 2001, 2002, for a typical suburban multifamily development, the maximum number of attached units per building that they like to see is in the 16 range. They don't mind seeing mixtures to help break it up if it's adjacent to residential development or adjacent to prominent roadways. But they did note that the 16 units per building for a 2-story multifamily development is something that is probably the most important thing that they said that they needed. And we heard it from so many of them. I think we recognized it, and we've seen it with all of the developments that we've had since 2002. Pretty much all of them have been larger buildings and larger unit numbers per building. But you can see we still have that variations should be provided, particularly if they are adjacent to single-family residential developments and adjacent to roadways. And I think that if we can make sure that if these projects are developed next to single-family residential, we can provide groups of buildings and try to make it less of an impact on the adjacent residential developments, and it will achieve what we are looking for. So that was the first change that we agreed to with the Arizona Multi-Housing Association. The second one, and I can wait there if there are any follow-up questions or any concerns about that one. The second one is on page 17. And it's number 5. Page 17 of the Chapter 3 multifamily residential. It's number 5. And this one is requiring two-story, or excuse me, it's requiring single-story elements associated with a multifamily housing development. And it's common practice to ask for single-story elements at corners, to help make the buildings look and feel a little bit less intrusive, kind of soften the massing. And sometimes that can be helpful if you are adjacent to a single-family development or adjacent to a roadway. And what the multifamily representatives have explained to us is that they can provide that with 2- and 3-story developments, but once you get to more dense multifamily developments, basically 4-story and greater, it's extremely difficult, if not impractical, to do that type of feature. But on the other hand, you typically don't see 4-story or greater developments next to single-family residential. Typically, it's in a different type of area. So we have amended the language accordingly to specifically note that the single-story elements are needed on 2- and 3-story developments, and that the single-story elements are not required in the higher density developments. And they provided us with a number of recent 4- to 6-story multifamily developments throughout the valley to show us examples of those. And in the city of Goodyear, we just have 2- and 3-story multifamily developments at this time. And any follow-up or questions on that one? The last item that I wanted to mention is regarding water features and reclaimed water. So this topic would relate to the commercial and the industrial or business park type developments. Really 2 chapters. Our colleagues in the Economic Development Department are happy with the regulations that we have that cover water features, but they did want us to add an additional provision next to them that reminds people that if there is reclaimed water in the area, that they would be encouraged to utilize it. And we can make sure that it's utilized efficiently, but they want people to make sure that they take advantage of that type of opportunity if it's available. And so we would probably need to add an additional provision, and we'll make sure that we can do that before we proceed to the City Council. But that essentially concludes the presentation by staff, and staff can answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Brent. Do we have any questions for staff?
Comment.
Commissioner Williams?
I appreciate the added emphasis that you all put into energy efficiency and environmental sensitivity. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You guys did great work on this, and I know that it took some time, and especially to take an extra meeting to do so. So thanks for your good work on this.
Thank you.
All right. Is anybody out there in the public wish to speak on this case? All right, if not, I will close the public hearing. Any other commission comments, questions?
Well, just one question. I would also say great job through all of this. But I had a question on chapter 2. Sorry about that. I just let you sit down, you know, to disturb you there. Page 10 on chapter 2, the single-family residential area, under 6B. There's a statement in there about water features being designed in a manner that residents will have the ability to enjoy the cooling effects of the water. And I just wondered what, from a design perspective, would meet that criteria or meet that goal.
Chairman Locks, members of the Planning Commission, our water conservation specialist helped us craft that particular provision, and their objective, the main objective, is we would love to see water features, but where they're used, we want to make sure that people can actually use them, sit by them, enjoy them, and make sure that they're water efficient, meaning that they're not going to just waste water. And so those are really the parameters. We would love to see water features, but we want to make sure that they understand that we're concerned about wasting water. But if you are going to provide a water feature, it'd be nice for people to be able to access it or utilize it or feel like they can enjoy the cooling effects of the water.
So it's utilitarian as well as ornamental. Is that the goal?
As long as it's efficient, yes.
No, and I think the use of gray water or other reclaimed waters, it's a great way to go. Very good. Thank you so much.
Okay, the public hearing has been closed. Any other questions? And I will take a motion for commission action.
Mr. Chairman, I move Council Commission approve case number 11-280-00001.
Okay, I've got a motion from Commissioner Peters,
Second.
second from Commissioner Miller. For the motion and the second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, you have recommended approval of case 11-280-00001. Next case, case 11-300-00002, the Sadia Temporary Water System Chlorinization Facility Use Permit. And I will open the public hearing. Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commission members. This is a request for a use permit for a public utility facility within the Sadia PAD. The Sadia PAD consists of 638 acres, bounded by Hamelback Road to the north, Citrus Road to the east, Indian School Road to the south, and Perryville to the west. The PAD was approved in 2005. The proposal is for a temporary chlorination unit to treat the potable water supply for the first phase of Sadia, which consists of about 299 units. The facility is proposed here at the northwest corner of Citrus and Campbell Avenue. As you can see, most of the area surrounding the facility is undeveloped. To the northwest and south is proposed residential development within Sadia. To the east is Citrus Road, and then the proposed Cala Verde Estates residential development. The facility itself is proposed within Phase 2A of Sadia, Lot 373. The facility will consist of a block wall which will match the approved theme walls for Sadia, and a small prefabricated building inside the facility. That building will be 144 square feet. Inside the building, all equipment will be inside the building, and as seen in the application, there'll be no hazardous materials on site. Little to no noise will be generated. There's no traffic except for routine maintenance, which is probably once a day. And so there should be no generation or effect to the surrounding roadways. Staff did review this application. We did find that it would not be a detriment to the surrounding area. We did find it would be compatible with the planned and existing uses in the area, especially given its temporary nature. Ultimately, this facility will be removed when the Liberty Water Campus is constructed. In this facility, the equipment will be moved over to the Liberty Campus, which is located, I don't have a map, but approximately about maybe 3/4 of a mile to the east of this spot. Mr. Chairman, we do find that this application is consistent. It's not going to be a detriment to the surrounding area. It'll be compatible with the surrounding uses. We are recommending approval subject to the stipulations in the staff report. With that, I can answer any questions.
Thank you, Steve. Any commission questions for staff? Commissioner Keith.
Got a couple. First, what's the anticipated timing of the water campus coming on board? I guess I'm asking, how temporary is this?
Mr. Chairman, Commission members, that is a good question. It sounds like it's a function of rooftops. This facility is only approved to serve that first phase of today, the 299 units. The Liberty Campus with Arizona American, it'll be a function of when they need to, or I guess when they need to have that unit online. So it's kind of unknown at this point.
And along those same lines, and I should know this, so bad me, what's the status of development in Sadea? I know that there's a final plat approved for this parcel.
They have the first phase, all final plats approved and recorded. The rest of the final plats are approved but not yet recorded. They do have all design review approved, the model home complex that was just approved. They do want to get started with selling and constructing homes. And this is one of the steps that need to take place getting this facility online.
Okay. And then my final question is, once this facility goes away, obviously this reverts to a single-family lot. And I just didn't know, I know that the impact of this facility is really minimal, but are there any potential residual effects on the actual property? Are there any disclosures that need to go out to the people who are going to buy this parcel after this facility goes away?
Chairman, Commissioner, that is another good question. All the equipment, everything will get removed from this site. That's the plan for the application. If there is any long-term effects, we did not notice any. We did not anticipate any. This was not a very significant or intense use. I don't know if the applicant could maybe elaborate a little more on that.
Any other questions? Right. Thank you. I see Kevin chomping at the bit to if you want to address it, that would be great. Because I'm sure you came prepared for with a lengthy presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission. In response to Commissioner Keith's question in particular, that and on a couple fronts, and Steve, I'd have to echo what he said in response to the timing of the facility. It's a little bit uncertain, and really it's a function of the market. There's a Maricopa County Environmental Services permit that regulates this facility as well. So there's the 299 lots that would fall, and they'd be happy to sell all those lots in the next couple of weeks. I'm sure the model home started going up today, actually, so to kind of touch on your timing there. But with respect to the notice or deed restriction, this thing is relatively equivalent to a chlorination system for a pool, maybe a larger pool a little bit, but we didn't, Marriage's attorneys and the folks that have looked at it did not see any need for any kind of legal disclosure to a future property owner, because there's nothing that is being put into the ground or anything. It's going to be discharged into the local sewer line, a simple brine solution that's similar to a water softener from the house.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
It did, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Are there anyone from the public like to comment or speak on this case? All right, then I will close the public hearing and take commission action.
Mr. Chairman, I recommend I move we recommend approval of case number 11-300-00002.
Second?
Got a motion from Commissioner Williams and a second from Commissioner Keith. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so ordered. You have recommended approval of case 11-300-00002. Then on to the last case, case 11-220-00001. I will open the public hearing. Joe.
Mr. Chairman, Commission members, good evening. This is a proposed text amendment to the sign regulations. And you may be wondering, didn't we just do the sign regulations amendment? And let me brief you on what occurred. When the recommended changes for temporary signs went before the City Council in November of last year, there were two issues identified at the council meeting that the council asked for additional research and for them to be addressed. One was with respect to vehicle signs, and the second was with respect to lead-in signs for particularly for home builders. Staff drafted an amendment with respect to the vehicle sign change, and we were working with the Home Builders Association to try to come up with a change for the potential change or adjustments related to lead-in signs, but we've kind of gotten delayed with that. There's been a change in staffing at the Home Builders Association, and so we're still working on that. And there was an interest in getting the vehicle sign matter resolved, so we are bringing it forward separately, and that's what's before you tonight. Basically, there was a concern cited at the council meeting regarding a vehicle that was parked in a manner that, under the current reading of the ordinance, was considered to be a vehicle sign, or the vehicle was parked in such a way that its primary purpose was to be displayed as a sign, as opposed to it just being parked in a parking space. And so that instance resulted in a little bit of controversy, I guess, in terms of enforcement. But when the council was presented with the information, they directed staff to consider a change to eliminate, not totally eliminate the provision, but at least to adjust the provision so that it may not be interpreted as strictly as it had been. Basically, the ordinance contains a definition of vehicle sign, and it says that a vehicle sign is a vehicle that has a sign displayed upon it, painted on it, or in this instance, or that was under discussion, it was a vehicle wrap sign, and there's a listing of things in the definition to indicate what is evidence of it being displayed primarily purpose as for a sign as opposed to being used as a vehicle. That's if the vehicle's not in operating condition, it has flat tires, it's not registered to drive on the road, then it's obviously not a vehicle because you can't drive it on the road. Not actively used in the daily function of the business, and used primarily as a static display for such signage. Code enforcement has a tough job, and they try to do the best they can, and part of how they interpret the rules and regulations is that if a vehicle that has a sign displayed upon it, including vehicles that are wrapped in signage, if they're parked in a lawful parking space, then they generally don't go after them. Primarily because it's kind of hard to tell whether it's being displayed as a sign or is being used. You don't have time to sit there all day and watch to see if it's being moved or not. So that's kind of a quick litmus test that they use. If it's in a parking space, they leave it alone. If it's not in a parking space, though, then it also was perceived as being de facto proof that it was being displayed to be a sign as opposed to being used as a vehicle. So the change that's proposed in the definition is that a vehicle that has a sign on it that is not in a properly not properly parked in a designated parking space would be considered being parked there for use as a sign, with the exception of vehicles under 6,500 pounds of gross weight, or curb vehicle weight, which limits it primarily to passenger vehicles. Most trucks are a heavier weight than that. But they still must be parked on a paved surface and in a manner that does not interfere with traffic circulation on the site. And the sign has to be painted upon the vehicle, has to be an integral part of the vehicle and consistent with the silhouette of the vehicle, so it can't be just stuck on top of the vehicle. It has to be displayed on the vehicle. So basically, this revised definition addresses vehicles with full wraps, because obviously they have their sign conform to the silhouette of the vehicle. So the net effect would be that a vehicle of that type, if it's not parked in properly parked in a parking space, but it's not interfering with traffic circulation in the center, and in the case that in particular, the center was not very developed. It had a very high vacancy rate, and I think that was also one of the things the council had some sympathy for, is that in centers where there's not a lot of activity, maybe we needed to stretch the rules a little bit to allow for the opportunity to display a little additional signage. So in that situation, then code compliance felt that they would have the latitude to make a judgment call and say, yeah, that it's not in a parking space, but it's not interfering with traffic circulation, and therefore is not being displayed or is not subject to the rules for a vehicle sign. So if you're not sufficiently confused, I could keep talking, or I could ask you to ask questions so I can explain it better. So to wrap up, we believe we've redrafted the definition in a manner that gives code compliance some greater flexibility in applying the rule. It addresses the case in point that brought this to our attention, and we are asking that you consider it and recommend it for approval. Thank you.
Do we
I have a
any
question. So if it's not a vehicle sign, what is it? In other words, if it's wrapped
For the
and
purpose-
it's sitting somewhere other than the parking spot, and it's not considered a vehicle sign, what is it?
Chairman Lux and Commissioner Miller, it would be considered a vehicle, not a
Okay.
sign.
Okay.
It's the vehicle. It's the vehicle that has a sign on it or is displayed in such a manner to function solely as a sign that is considered a prohibited sign.
Sorry.
Commissioner Williams?
A little nitpicky, I know, but you say a sign mounted, painted, or otherwise placed on a, and if the purpose, if the motivation was to address vehicle wraps, why don't we say a sign mounted, painted, wrapped, or otherwise placed on a truck? Why don't we include the term wrapped in there?
Chairman Lux, Commissioner Williams, there'd be no harm in including it. The additional part of the definition that says it's painted upon an integral part of the vehicle as originally designed by the manufacturer does not break the silhouette of the vehicle is what was directed at the wrap. So it is included.
Implied, right?
It's implied,
Yeah.
I guess.
Implied, but
like I said, it would not hurt anything to add that and may add clarity. So I'd be fine with that.
Mr. Chairman, so in theory, could we have a whole row of different cars parked out in the, close to the street, just supplementing whatever limitations there currently are to whatever signage ordinances we have?
Chairman Lux, Commissioner Peters, I suppose in theory we could. To be honest, it hasn't been a big problem up to this point. We probably have more enforcement related to trucks that are parked in a manner to primarily function as a sign, especially opposed to the vehicle wraps. And frankly, I think if if they park them, if somebody were to park it right now in a legitimate parking space, we wouldn't bother them anyway. So I appreciate the comment and the potential concern, but again, I don't think it's been a problem now. I do know that some ordinances go to great lengths to say that a vehicle parked in one spot any more than 6 hours is considered to be in display as a sign. And I'm not sure we want to go there. So,
Yeah, absolutely, Mr. Chairman. I agree that, anything we can do to help, advertise business, especially in the struggling, areas is important. I'm just concerned about, we have certain sign limitations, and if it's not quite getting the job done, or, the business owner doesn't feel like it's getting the job done, and they, will park vehicles outside of the parking lot just to supplement whatever their sign restrictions are, it's just something I was thinking about. I'm not sure, pragmatically if it'll actually play out, or realistically it'll play out, but,
no, I think it's a legitimate concern. We haven't seen it to this point, so it's not a problem that we've felt a need to address. But and hopefully, if there are vehicles that are primarily wrapped in signs, I don't know to what extent businesses are going to all run out and do that. Our bigger concern was putting that weight limit in there so you wouldn't have box vans parked all over the place, because they're big, and they're highly visible if they're parked in a manner to display the sign. I would like to comment on the one point, though. We are seeing increased pressure or comments from businesses that don't have in shopping areas or business parks that don't have multi-tenant signage. And for whatever reason, probably the economy, I guess, some of the building owners and developers didn't bother to put multi-tenant signage out there because they cost money. And typically what happens is they require the business to basically buy into a piece of the sign. So if it costs $20,000 and there's 10 spots on it, they divvy it up and probably jack it up too, for all I know. But that's where we're getting the most pressure in particular, are from the areas where the developer or the shopping center owner didn't go to that expense, and that's caused some problems. But it's not because we didn't let them put signs out. They didn't ask to put signs out. So.
Got a question. If it can't go in a parking spot and it can impede traffic, give me an example as to where it would go. I mean, are we talking like a nearly vacant or undeveloped center where a corner of the parking lot is fairly unused at the moment, and it can go just generally in that area because it's not impeding traffic? Is that an example of where it might go?
Chairman Locke, Commissioner Keith, that's exactly right. And even an instance where there might be a parking drive aisle, but there's nobody parking there, and if a vehicle were to try to go through the drive aisle, they still could get by the other vehicle. Now, if they parked it in such a way to basically block the drive aisle, and that might be an issue, but again, it'll be a little bit of a judgment call. But I think in running this by co-compliance, they felt that it would give them enough ability to make those judgments.
Okay.
Any other questions from staff? Okay. I have a member of the public who wishes to speak, Mr. David Wilson. Do you want to state your name and address for the record?
David Wilson, owner of David Gerard Salon, 3810 South Australia Parkway. The concerns are very good, and the reason why this was brought up is because our shopping center, we now have 3 stores in there, but there is probably 12 or 13 vacant. And what Joe has done, what the committee has done, written it the way it's written, it's really done perfectly, and it does say private property. As long as you are on private property, we're not blocking traffic. My vehicle was one that brought up. We parked it on our private property in the parking lot on the curb, but it was going parallel with Australia Parkway, and you can see it. Whereas if the lines, the vertical lines the other way, we couldn't see it. And probably the landlord, the developer, they do not have the money to put up signage to put up column signage, I guess they're talking about. They are a lot of money. I've got Taste of Italy, myself, and now Pet's Place, who just went in. And Pet's Place isn't doing very good at all. If the landlord was even come and approached and even said, I'm going to put up a 30-foot monument at $5,000, and each one he's put in $500, it's difficult. It's still difficult. The car is wrapped, the signage is there. I just pulled the car up, and it works. It works for the center. And it was asked for vacant lots, vacant shopping centers. If everybody had one, it would be difficult. The one main eyesore that I see day in and day out is the Cricket truck over by Cricket. It's parked in the designated lines, and the law says it can't be there. It has to move because it's commercial, but it doesn't move. You can paint the line, chalk it, but yet that truck still stays there, and it's an ugly, big box truck. And we're talking about, I've got a small little Kia Soul wrap, and most wraps are done very decent. But I support it, and actually the verbiage is very, very good, very precise. And it does help the ordinance department. Private property, it's very well laid out. You won't have a bunch of people going along outside that private property, lining up along shopping centers. There is no shopping center that you can get out and do that. So it is well done, and I strongly support the way they have it right now. Thank you.
I just thought of another question,
Mr. Wilson?
Joe.
Oh,
I'm
is it?
sorry.
Nope.
It's actually for Joe. And I haven't looked at a set of commercial design guidelines in a while, so that's why I'm asking this question. Is there generally a prohibition in design guidelines for vehicle signs? Have you seen that? I mean, I don't know if this is going to be an issue where the city allows it, but then private design guidelines or CC&Rs prohibit these kind of things.
We rely primarily on the zoning ordinance, not the design guidelines.
Well, I'm saying like the CC&Rs for a center. I know that you don't enforce those CC&Rs. I just didn't know if it's going to be something where, like I said, the city allows it, but a set of CC&Rs do not allow a vehicle sign.
That's a potential problem,
Okay.
but that would be, again, like you indicated, it would not be something we would enforce.
Okay. Is anyone else out there in the audience wish to speak to this case? Okay, I will close the public hearing. Take any commission comments, questions, or commission action.
I move that we recommend acceptance of case 11-220-0001 zoning ordinance text amendment Article 7 on the sign regulations.
Okay, I've got a motion from Commissioner Short. Any second from Commissioner Slosser? You have heard the motion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Right. So ordered. You have recommended approval of case 11-220-00001. All right, that concludes our business. Staff, do
I just wanted to give you a brief update on the city's Operations Center project we're working on, because there's going to be a work session before the city council on Monday at 4:30. The site is 96 acres located adjacent to the Goodyear Water Reclamation Facility, south of MC 85, which runs up along here, and west of Estrella Parkway. You can see there's like a pink line that kind of runs along here and here and here. That's the acreage that's owned by the city. Eventually, this will hold the Public Safety Administration facilities, police impound yard, emergency operations center, IT administration center, public works field operations, parks and rec field operations, 911 dispatch center. We are working with Arrington Watkins Architects on the master plan, and that is part of phase 1 of the project. Also, the Public Works Storage Yard, the 911 Center, and all the site infrastructure for those facilities. And eventually, there will be a use permit application that will come back before you for the tower for the 911 Center. We anticipate that probably sometime towards the end of the summer that will occur. That use permit will come back before you. And the construction bidding will occur at the end of this year, and construction mobilization will occur at the beginning of next year, and completion of construction will take about a year. So if you can, attend the work session before council on Monday, or at least watch it on the videotape, and you'll get all the specific details about the project and the funding for the project, which will come from development fees. Okay? And we will be back before you with the tower for the 911 Center.
Mr. Chairman, I just have a quick question.
Sure.
How does the new development impact fee statute affect the plan for this operations center? You said it's going to be paid for with development fees.
Yeah, right
And I know that
now,
there's a bunch of new restrictions.
there's already $5.6 million in the fiscal year 10-11 capital improvement fund that's already there for the first phase of the development.
Just out of curiosity, how high is the tower going to be?
It will probably be about 120 feet, and we are working with the Phoenix Aviation and FAA guidelines to make sure that that tower is located outside of any flight restrictions. In all likelihood, the 911 Center is probably going to be right up in here. This is Broadway Road that will be extended down here, and 157th Avenue will go up to MC 85, and then the Public Works Yard, which will be part of phase 1, will also be down here. We're trying to obviously stay on either side of where the I-10 reliever will eventually go through.
Mr. Chairman, where are these folks currently housed?
The 911 Center is in the old police station just north of Yuma on Litchfield Road. They outgrew that years and years and years ago, and the Public Works Yard used to be on the south side of Western Avenue, just east of Litchfield Road. The lease there was up. They moved some of their facilities out to the reclamation facility already, so that's one of the reasons why that facility is going to be located adjacent to the reclamation facility. You know, Parks and Rec, their facilities are scattered around town. IT is in City Hall right now. The idea being that eventually the professional offices will be located in City Center, and this will be, as is called, an operations center for the city.
Is the old service yard that they're moving from, is that one of the brownfield sites that's going to be cleaned up?
I don't believe it is, no. This is over on the east side of Litchfield. On the south side of Western Avenue is where the current Public Works facility is.
I don't remember the exact list, but it might be it might be on the list.
I know it was on the list because I was on that
So-
committee, and I
Right.
don't remember if it was one of the 3 or 4 that were selected or not. But I just, whether it is or not, I hope they're a little more judicious with their disposal in the new site than they were in the old one.
They don't have much choice now.
Anything else?
All right. Thank you. Harvey, Joe, you guys have anything else?
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, a couple of things. The design guidelines, is this on? The design guidelines, we're taking the document to the city council for discussion and then hopefully action in July on design guidelines. Also, another item that's coming before you some amendments to the subdivision regulations. One of the things that has come up over the last year or so since the downturn in the economy has been a number of final plats that have been approved but not recorded. And we have several of those, and there is no expiration date for final plats. So we have had final plats that have just been kind of lingering out there for numerous years. So we are proposing a provision to put an expiration date on a final plat if it's not recorded within 90 days, and there's a process for extending that. This will be very similar to what Phoenix has, City of Phoenix has that. And there'll also be some other minor amendments to subdivision regulations, cleanup that we'll be proposing in June. There's also a few other items, cases that we're moving forward that you'll see too. So activity level has picked up. That's all I have. Go ahead.
So what you mean, Harvey, is your staff is tired of rewriting the zoning ordinances?
There's only so many chapters.
All right. Thanks, Harvey. If there's nothing else for the good of the order, we are adjourned.